He spent a fortune to build a paradise on Earth at a height of 327 meters. And then he fled from it because every ray of sunlight became a torture, searing his eyes. Every stone here was paid for with other people's secrets. His patients weren't sick, they were just rich and miserable, and he turned their suffering into marble. This is a 19th century business model that would be worth billions today. You are looking at a perfect villa, but in reality, it is a crime scene. A crime in which not a single drop of blood was shed. I will tell you how a dream became the perfect weapon, which with surgical precision carved the life out of its creator, and why the main witness to this crime, a 2-ton granite sphinx, has been silent for 3,000 years. The island of Capri. The air here is thick, like syrup. It smells of salt, of stone overheated by the sun, and of jasmine. Thousands of people ascend here, 327 meters above the sea, to see a dream. They see white arches framing the blue expanse, the perfect shot for a life they want to show to others. Laughter reflects off the walls. Camera flashes try to steal a piece of this light, but the house looks through them, arrogantly, coldly. It has seen too many faces to remember a single one. The camera glides past the smiles, past the idle crowd, searching for what is hidden. A crack in the marble, like an old scar. The ulcer of time on the flawless white skin of the plaster. The dust that dances in a sunbeam. It's not just dust. It is the ash of burnt ambitions. And there it is, the Sphinx. 2 tons of pink granite, frozen on the edge of the world. It was brought here by force, against all common sense. Its stone eyes are empty, but they have seen everything. For 3,000 years, it has learned to be silent. It doesn't look at the bay. It looks through time. It is waiting for all these people to leave, for the house to be alone with its ghosts once more. The creator of this place, Axel Munthe, wrote, "My house must be open to the sun and the wind and the voices of the sea, like a Greek temple, and light, light, light everywhere." But he was lying, to himself and to us. This house is inhabited not by light, but by shadows. Flash. The echo of lonely keys, fragile and lost in the vast space. The fingers of an old queen touch the ivory in a hall where only emptiness applauds. She isn't playing for guests. She is playing for him, and he isn't listening. Flash. A sudden sound, not a cry of pain, a cry of despair. A man's cry, ragged. It hits the walls and fades. The cry of a man who got everything he wanted and realized he had received nothing. Flash. A crash. The slow, inevitable grind of stone that gives way and falls into the abyss. The sound of a fortune turning to dust. The sound of a will that has collided with reality. This is not a museum. Museums preserve dead art. This place is alive. It breathes with regret. Every column here is a vertebra in the skeleton of a monstrous obsession. Every floor tile was paid for not with money, but with quiet compromises, sold secrets, and betrayed time. People come here for beauty. They don't know they are walking on a crime scene. A perfect, flawless crime, where a dream, with surgical precision, carved the life out of its creator, leaving only an empty, sun-drenched shell. The Sphinx is silent. It is the chief witness, and it knows the killer's name. Paris, the late 19th century. The city smells of damp coal, expensive perfume, and hypocrisy. Here, in a labyrinth of heavy drapes and gilded furniture, Dr. Axel Munthe found his gold mine. It pulsed not beneath the skin, but inside tightly stuffed wallets. His office on the Avenue de Villiers is not a clinic. It is a confessional, a stage where the same play is performed over and over. People don't come here to heal the body. They come here to sell their souls, or rather, to rent them for an hour, so that someone else can listen to their moans. Munthe is not a doctor. He is a listener, a collector of other people's sins. His main instrument is silence. He allows it to thicken in the room until it becomes so dense it could be cut with a knife. And then they begin to talk. American heiresses languishing in marriages of convenience. Russian princes gambling away the last remnants of their empires in Monaco. British lords whose vices were too expensive even for London. They aren't sick. They are just rich and miserable. And Munthe writes them the most expensive prescription in the world. A prescription for the illusion of being understood. Here is a room, draped in velvet and despair. Princess Orlova is sobbing on the couch. She has nerves. That's what they call the emptiness that eats away at them from the inside in her circle. Munthe doesn't give her medicine. He moves closer. His voice, like silk, envelops her hysterics. He talks about dreams, about the power of will. He looks into her eyes, and the world narrows to his pupils. Hypnosis. Magic for those who have everything but faith. 20 minutes later, she is asleep. Peacefully. For the first time in a month. Her fee lies on the table. It's not money. Money is vulgar. It's an ancient Roman bust. A patrician with an arrogant, cold face. The princess got rid of it to make room for a new trinket. Munthe takes it. This stone saw the fall of Rome. Now it will witness the birth of his personal myth. And here is a secret meeting. Far from prying eyes. The Queen of Sweden, Victoria, a woman trapped in an icy corset of etiquette and chronic bronchitis. He is her only release, her doctor, her friend, her innkeeper. He knows about her fears, her loneliness, the fragility behind the royal facade. His silence is expensive. She hands him a quiet, heavy envelope. Not a payment, a donation. For his research. A sum sufficient to buy an entire village in the south of Italy. He takes it without a shadow of embarrassment. This is not charity. It's a deal. He gives her an hour of his time, a drop of his sympathy, and she pays for another row of columns for him with a view of the Bay of Naples. Every visit to these palaces is a raid. He doesn't heal. He extracts. He monetizes their boredom, their infidelities, their secret addictions. He is an alchemist of the new age. He turns others' suffering into marble, others' fears into columns, others' guilt into the gold he will use to pay for his personal paradise. This money isn't earned, it's laundered. Laundered of the tears, the lies, the quiet desperation of the wealthiest people in Europe. And every franc, every pound, every mark carries this invisible stain. He doesn't yet know that a house built on a foundation of other people's secrets will one day demand his own, the most terrible one. Here, on this cliff, the earth ends. Beyond is only a blue emptiness that intoxicates and terrifies. A hungry wind licks the words from your lips. Below, in the 300-meter abyss, the sea breathes. He stands here, Axel Munthe, on the bones of an empire. This is all that remains of the palace of Tiberius, the cruel, paranoid emperor who fled here from Rome to rule the world from his stone burrow. Munthe feels his ghost in the hot stone beneath his feet, and he despises him. Tiberius was afraid of everything, afraid of conspiracies, of poison, of the open sky. He built thick walls to hide. Munthe looks at the hazy Europe left far behind, at his pathetic, wealthy patients drowning in silks and boredom, at his charlatan colleagues peddling pills. He wants to hide too, but he will correct the emperor's mistake. He will not build a house. He will erect a monument to his own superiority. Next to him stands Nicola Fedele, a local master whose hands know the language of this stone. Munthe unfolds a crumpled piece of paper. Not a blueprint, a sketch, made in a fever of inspiration. Lines of arches hanging in the void. Walls that don't lead to rooms, but flow into gardens. Nicola squints. He sees madness. Signor, there are no corridors. Munthe smiles his thin, predatory smile. Corridors are for rats and servants. I want to walk from cloud to cloud. And the roof, signor? The roof is the sky. Nicola is silent. He has built houses his entire life. He knows that houses need roofs to protect from the rain, from the scorching sun. But this man doesn't want protection. He wants an embrace. He wants the house to let in all of God, all of this merciless, blinding light. And here lies the main secret, the genuine animal fear that drives this great construction. In the evenings, as the sun drowns in the bay, Munthe notices it. A slight fog at the edges of his vision. The world is slowly losing its contours. The colors fade, as if someone were mixing soot into the watercolors of reality. His eyes, the most precise of his instruments, are beginning to lie. The doctors in Paris have given their diagnosis, words he didn't want to hear. A progressive disease, a slow path into darkness. And then the plan becomes clear. This is not a temple. It is a fortress. A fortress not against the world. A fortress against the darkness advancing from within. Every white wall he designs is a mirror to catch and reflect the last rays. Every arch is not a frame for the landscape. It is a trap for the sun. He is not building this house to live in it. He is building it to remember, to absorb as much light as his fading memory can carry with it. It is a desperate race, a battle he is waging against his own cells. He wasn't building a house, but a memory of light that he wanted to take with him into the night. This wasn't construction. It was war. A war against gravity, against superstition, against the very stone from which a dream was being born. Every day began with the same sound. The creak of ropes, the rasping breath of men, and curses aimed at donkeys. Dozens of workers, their faces tanned leather by the salt wind, became a living machine, a muscular chain dragging the past uphill. They were hauling Rome itself, ancient columns, heavy as the sins of dead emperors, sarcophagi in which slept shadows that knew no rest, capitals carved by hands that had long since turned to dust. All of it, stone by stone, was raised 327 meters up paths where only a goat could pass. Every ascent was a feat. Every mistake threatened death. Nicola Fedele shouted, Munthe commanded, and the mountain watched in silence, wondering if it was ready to accept this foreign weight upon its shoulders. And one day, it said, no. It was noon. The air buzzed with heat and cicadas. The retaining wall, the very one hanging over the abyss, grew tired. It shuddered, let out a groan like the sigh of a dying giant, and collapsed. A cloud of white dust shot up to the sky, like a signal of defeat. A fortune, months of hellish labor, hopes, all of it had turned into a pile of rubble at the bottom of the gorge. That evening, the workers didn't sing. They gathered their tools. They spoke in whispers. The curse of Tiberius. The emperor's spirit didn't want a stranger on his land. It demanded a sacrifice. Fear, sticky and ancient as the island itself, paralyzed the construction. At dawn, Munthe came out to them alone. In his hands were not gold, not promises. There was a pickaxe. He silently walked up to the rock face and struck it. Once, again, and again. The sound of metal on stone was desperate and lonely. He, a doctor with soft hands, was tearing his own palms, but he didn't stop. He was showing them that his will was stronger than the curses of the dead. that he himself was a curse more terrifying than any ghost. One by one, the workers picked up their tools. The war continued, but the main battle was still ahead, Operation Sphinx. 2 tons of Egyptian granite, bought somewhere in Calabria with shady money, had to be hoisted to the very edge of the cliff. It was pure madness, an engineering nightmare. Nicola begged him to give up. Winches screeched, wooden beams groaned, ropes strained to their limit, ready to snap and decapitate anyone. Centimeter by centimeter, the stone deity crawled toward its throne. This went on for several days, days when no one slept, when the air was electrified with tension. Munthe stood there, on the edge, conducting this chaos like a crazed composer writing a symphony on the brink of disaster. And then, silence. The Sphinx was in place. It gazed east, toward its lost home. There was no jubilation among the workers, only exhausted, superstitious relief. They had won. But this was not a triumph of creation. It was a triumph of obsession. The triumph of a single human will that had bent the laws of physics, common sense, and the fear of death to its whim. The Sphinx was in place. But the price of this victory was already written into the project's invisible budget. The villa came to life. But it wasn't a life. It was a performance. San Michele was no longer a construction site. It had become a stage, drawing the most famous names in Europe. In the evenings, the air, saturated with the scent of roses and lemons, filled with the sounds of a grand piano and laughter in 5 languages. The glow of hundreds of candles reflected in wine glasses, in the eyes of beautiful women, in the precious stones on their necks. It was meant to drown out the darkness, but it only made it thicker. Queen Victoria came here, an aging woman seeking refuge in this sunny paradise from the cold of Swedish palaces and her own loneliness. Her closeness with Munthe, her 50-year-old doctor, became the spiciest gossip in the courts of Europe. Was it love, or a bargain between 2 tired souls who found sanctuary in each other? No one knew, but the rumors, like expensive perfume, gave the place even more glamour. But the camera lies. It shows us the facade, and behind it, the reverse. Munthe moves through the crowd of his guests. He is the perfect host. A smile, a witty phrase, a slight bow. But his eyes are cold. He is here, but he is not with them. He looks at them the same way he looks at his collection of ancient busts, with interest, with slight contempt, like exhibits in a museum of human vanity. His wife, Hilda, an Englishwoman with quiet eyes, and their children are rare, almost accidental guests in this paradise. They come for a few weeks, wandering through the perfect gardens like ghosts from another, simpler, warmer life. There is no place for them here. This house is not a family nest. It is an ego, frozen in stone. A monologue by one man, intolerant of dialogue. But there is another master here, a baboon, a wild, unpredictable creature who is allowed everything. It can burst into the dining room during dinner, snatch a fruit from a duchess's plate, and Munthe will only laugh. This animal, with its primal honesty, he trusts more than any of his illustrious guests. The baboon doesn't lie. It doesn't scheme. It simply is. The halls are full of people, but the owner is unbearably lonely. He has achieved everything. He sits on his Olympus, which he built for himself, and sees that gods are always lonely. This house, which he created as a refuge from the ugliness of the world, has become his most beautiful prison, a golden cage where the echo of footsteps sounds louder than music, where you can gather all of Europe and not hear a single sincere word. He is surrounded by a crowd, but he cannot hide from the main enemy, who looks back at him from every mirror, from the dark surface of every window, from himself, and from the emptiness that has settled in the very heart of his sun-drenched paradise. An emptiness that cannot be filled by music, nor wine, nor the admiring glances of guests, a gilded, perfect, infinite emptiness. The day came when the god of this place was overthrown, not by enemies, not by time, but by his own creation. He stands in his famous loggia, the very one, with columns reaching for the sky. Before him is the view for which he sold a piece of his soul. The Bay of Naples, Vesuvius, a blueness that cannot be described in words. He craved this light. He built this house as a machine to capture it. He let the sun into every room, made it play on the white walls, dance on the marble floor. And now this light, his deity, has become his executioner. He cannot look. The bright Capri sun, reflected off the sea and the white walls, no longer caresses. It strikes his eyes with red-hot needles. Every ray is torture. Every flash on the water is a knife to the retina. The beauty he had collected piece by piece has turned into a weapon aimed against him. His eyes have betrayed him. The darkness he fought his whole life has found the most ironic way to win. It did not consume him. It forced him to flee from the light, the doctor who healed the nerves of European aristocracy, the hypnotist who calmed others' hysterics with a single glance, the man whose will moved mountains and raised sphinxes. Now he stands, squinting and turning away, powerless against his own affliction. He has written thousands of prescriptions, but for himself, he has no cure. The paradise he spent decades building, stone by stone, has become his personal hell, a torture chamber with the most beautiful view in the world. Every corner of this house, every arch, every column, created to catch the light, now screams at him, "Leave! You don't belong here." It is an exile, the cruelest of all. He is not being exiled by people. He is being exiled by his own dream. And here is a scene, devoid of all pathos. There are no farewell speeches, no tears. Just a man, packing a small suitcase. He touches the cool marble of a statue by feel. He runs his hand over the bark of an old pine tree in the garden. He breathes in this air one last time, trying to memorize its scent, a mix of salt, pine, and flowers. He is leaving San Michele forever, not because he has fallen out of love with it, but because loving it has become unbearably painful. He is leaving for the shadows, into the twilight of Roman palazzos, into rooms with tightly drawn curtains, where his ailing eyes can finally rest. He leaves his sunlit creation behind, perfect, radiant, and completely indifferent to his fate. The house had won. It had rejected its creator, like a foreign organ, and remained alone, to wait for a new legend. Years flow like sand through the fingers of a dead emperor. The villa stands, perfect, cold, flawless, like a tombstone. Now it is a house without a master, a stage without its lead actor. Its halls, accustomed to the echo of royal footsteps and whispers in 5 languages, now listen only to the creak of floorboards under the feet of random caretakers and the rustle of wind in the cypresses. The house is frozen. It does not live. It waits. The Second World War swept across Europe like a fiery wave, but it spared this cliff. The villa was requisitioned. Soldiers walked its terraces, smoking, looking out at the bay, marveling at the whim of a foreigner who had built a palace in the clouds. They dared not touch a thing. There was something in these walls that tamed even brute force, a kind of mute, arrogant power. The villa was not physically harmed, but its soul had died. It became a beautiful thing without a purpose. Meanwhile, hundreds of kilometers away, in Stockholm, its creator was living out his final years. He lives by charity, in the royal palace. Old, almost infirm, completely blind Axel Munthe. For him, the world had collapsed into tactile sensations and sounds. The cold of the sheets, the creak of a chair, voices drifting from a fog. He, who once commanded the light, now lives in eternal night. But his will, the very one that moved stones, is not broken. It has found a final outlet, a final battlefield, his memory. He sits in the darkness, and before him, brighter than ever, stands his San Michele, and he begins to build it anew, not from stone, from words. He dictates, page after page. He is writing a book, the story of San Michele. But it is not a memoir. It is not a confession. It is an act of creation. He raises the columns again, but this time with the power of imagination. He argues with the workers again, but they are merely obedient ghosts in his memory. He embellishes, he lies, he creates myths. He tells of how he found the Sphinx as if it were divine providence and not some dubious deal. He describes his conversations with the spirit of Tiberius, transforming his loneliness into a mystical gift. He is not creating a book. He is creating a portal. Every word is a step through familiar rooms. Every sentence is an attempt to feel the warmth of the stone under his hand again, to breathe in the salt air again, to see the blue of the bay again. He is building his home in the only place he has left, in his mind. This book is not a memory of paradise. It is a desperate attempt by an exile to return home. He lost the battle with the light, but he will not let the darkness take his creation from him. If he cannot see it, he will make the entire world see it through his eyes, the eyes of a blind god. 1949. Axel Munthe dies in the royal palace in Stockholm, in darkness, in silence. His body, worn out by 91 years of struggle, has surrendered, but his ego, his will, have not. They have only just begun their true life. He left behind a will, not just a legal document. It was his final, most brilliant move in his game against time. He gave the Villa San Michele to the Swedish state. He turned his personal monument into a national treasure, a clever, cold calculation. He knew that empires fall, families fall apart, and fortunes dwindle, but the bureaucratic machine of the state is nearly eternal. But that is not what saves the villa. Its soul does, the very one the blind man created in the darkness. His book, The Story of San Michele, takes the world by storm. It becomes more than just a bestseller. It becomes a revelation. Millions of people, exhausted by 2 world wars, read it like a gospel of a lost paradise. They fall in love not with a real house of stone, but with a myth, with a dream of light, beauty, and harmony, born in the mind of a man who had lost it all. The myth proves to be stronger than reality, and more profitable. The book is translated into 50 languages. Money from its sales flows like a river, tens of millions of copies. They create a foundation that becomes the blood feeding the villa's cold, stone heart. The legend created on paper ensures eternal life for the creation of marble. We are here again, in our time. The sun still floods the terraces. Tourists still wander the halls, clicking their tongues in admiration. In the gift shop by the entrance, they buy it, that very book. They put it in their bags to read at the hotel in the evening. They walk through these rooms and do not know the true price of this place. They don't hear the echo of a scream of despair. They don't feel the cold of loneliness etched into the walls. They don't understand that this beauty was exchanged for sight, for family, for peace. They see only a postcard, a perfect, sun-drenched lie. Munthe got what he wanted. He received what he craved more than life itself: immortality. He lost all his human battles. He lost his sight, lost his home, lost his family. He died in exile, but he won the war. His ego, his indomitable, monstrous will, sealed in two substances, in stone and on paper, proved stronger than death, stronger than time. Final shot. The Sphinx. It still looks out at the sea. It has seen everything. The birth of a dream, the triumph of a will, the creator's exile, the years of oblivion, and now, the endless stream of pilgrims who have come to worship the myth. The Sphinx does not smile. It was simply waiting. It knew that gods come and go, but the stone remains, and the legends. So what have we witnessed? Not the story of a house, but the story of a will that turned the suffering of others into marble and its own darkness into blinding light. Ultimately, this is a tale of a bargain where the immortality of a myth was paid for with the price of a single human life. And looking at this perfect facade, what do we choose for ourselves? The warmth of a fleeting, real life that will be erased without a trace, or the cold majesty of stone that will outlive us, but for which one must pay with life itself? This eternal dispute between creator and creation has no single answer. We would be glad to read yours in the comments. And if this story made you think, your like and subscription will be the best sign that conversations like these are needed.